All right, we're back, folks. We are continuing our Helene coverage, and hopefully you watched our special that we had on Helene 1 year after, as we commemorate and remember those lives lost, and for those people who are still rebuilding, still highlighting that. So we did play that last night at 9 o'clock here on WCNC Plus. So if you would like to go back and watch that, you can find it on this app whenever you have the time. We're going to bring in Vanessa Rufus, who is in Boone, but specifically has some discussion on a rescue that happened right after Helene. So set the scene for us, Vanessa. Rowan County Sheriff Travis Allen was deployed alongside Avery County deputies. Explain the situation right after Helene.
Yeah, so Colin, we saw, of course, in the wake of Helene, a lot of agencies from not only around North Carolina, but really around the nation coming to Western North Carolina to help out those local first responders since they were so overwhelmed. So I've been working on a piece that's going to air tonight at 6 o'clock here on WCNC Plus, and it is about Rowan County Sheriff Travis Allen and his deputies. The sheriff actually deployed alongside his deputies up to Avery County, and those deputies were involved with all sorts of rescues, stranded folks. They were actually involved with this Chinook helicopter rescue of more than 30 people who were stranded up in the high country. And, I talked to him about his decision to deploy, and he said that, it just brings a little bit more weight when the sheriff, him or herself, deploys alongside their crews. And he basically described it as an experience that he and his deputies will never forget, Colin.
Totally understand that. A lot of people have that perspective after. Talk about the efforts that they had to deal with and really help with when they got there, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so in addition to working alongside swiftwater rescue crews from Cary, North Carolina, and that Maryland Chinook helicopter, they were involved with going door to door, essentially trying to speak with folks to see if they could get them to evacuate and offer assistance if folks accepted that offer. They also were involved with bringing in supplies. The sheriff himself talked about how his deputies for days and weeks after Helene stayed on the ground, and he, over the course of several days, would shuttle back and forth between Rowan County and Avery County in order to bring supplies. And the other interesting way that they helped out, which I remember this because it was happening in real time. And there were folks who were actually kind of reaching out to us asking where some of the inmates from Avery County had gone. Well, the sheriff, after finding out that the power and the water was out at the Avery County jail, decided that he was going to take dozens of inmates from Avery County into the Rowan County jail. So they essentially evacuated all those inmates from Avery County, brought them to Rowan County, and did that so that the sheriff in Avery County didn't have to worry about deploying or using any sort of personnel for jail operations, and could focus those efforts elsewhere as far as recovery. It's a little breezy out here, so forgive me if I'm playing with my hair. I'm going to pin it back.
Yeah, no worries. Infrastructure and communication issues, obviously, those are the two biggest things that folks had to deal with. And a lot of people are relooking at how they prepared, how they responded. Did they talk about that and how they are second guessing any of the actions that they took?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely said it was a really good learning experience for them. You remember this after the storm, Colin, the fact that a lot of the roadways were washed out in Avery County, a lot of the bridges, and they also really didn't have any connectivity while they were there. You might remember folks weren't even able to dial 911 and get an operator, and they were having people at the time in Avery County email emergency requests to a certain email address because there was no other way. So given, first responders deploying now to this kind of dead zone of connectivity and inaccessibility, they really had to learn about how to navigate. And so the sheriff, he posted a lot of footage from his time in Avery County. There's a lot of videos of him on, ATVs and, off-roading type vehicles trying to get around. So that was something that they realized they needed to rely on heavily. And the other thing was because they couldn't communicate really easily, and they couldn't get GPS and that sort of thing. He actually was like, we really could have done pretty well by having good old fashioned paper maps. And that's something that, here in a modern day with GPS, and it's just so easy to figure out how to get around a place, that not a lot of people might know how to read a paper map, but he was like, we had to kind of go back to basics. The other thing that he learned was in a situation where it's so dire and a lot of the infrastructure has been wiped out and a lot of the local first responders were kind of overwhelmed dealing with their own concerns and the local residents that they had to help. He realized that they probably won't next time if they have to do this deploy by themselves as just a sheriff's office. He was saying, we need to be deploying with EMS and maybe even our own swiftwater crews, and we really need to be self-sustaining, because if something happens to us, the local personnel are not accessible to come in and help us. So it was something that he said was a good learning experience for him as far as the skills and the people that they need and the items that they would need. And the other thing that he said he learned a lot was, and this is kind of interesting too, a lot of the coastal crews, so coastal sheriff's offices came and deployed to Western North Carolina, which was, he said, an unusual dynamic since usually during hurricane season, it's all the inland and mountain sheriffs deploying to the coast to help with the coastal teams. Well, he said when the coastal folks showed up, they had all these mobile kitchens and all these different, methods that they had honed really well in learning how to deal with a hurricane and hurricane response. And he was like, this is something maybe we need to start looking at, as agencies to learn from and how they deal with hurricanes. So just a way to kind of, I guess, reassess how they're responding and preparing going forward.
Yeah, like a lot of people are doing. We're obviously marking Helene 1 year mark this weekend. People are reflecting on the milestone differently. How are they reflecting this week?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this before. The sheriff talked about how not only for himself, but for his deputies, this is, an experience that they'll never forget. Something that he kind of reiterated over and over again was, even though he deployed, it was really about his deputies, his men and women who were up there, showing their service-minded hearts. He talked about how the resilience really shined, for the Western North Carolina community. He had a specific story that he, remembers to this day of, when they were going door to door trying to get folks to evacuate. He said there was an elderly woman, they knocked on her door, and he said that, she was basically steeped in this community, grew up there, generations and generations of her family going back, having lived and survived in the mountains. And he was like, hey, I think you're going to need to evacuate. It's pretty unsafe out here. I don't know the next time you're going to have, the ability to go to the store and get sustenance, all that. And he said that she basically took him around her house and was like, look in the pantry. And it was like all these canned goods. And he said that, she took him around and like showed him up under the porch, and there were just like all these potatoes. He said, potatoes as far as the eye could see. She showed him her hand pump well. She's like, this works. I can use this to get water. And he said to her, wow, it looks like you're a lot better off than we are. Can we come over for dinner? But he was just like, that just really speaks to how resilient and how prepared and, just how hardy this community is.
Anything else that you wanted to share that we might have missed or didn't ask you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the other point that he really reiterated too was the fact that the Rowan County Sheriff's Office deployment really came about as a partnership with the National Sheriff's Association. So he was saying, in this case, it was all of us from everywhere else coming to Western North Carolina. But in other situations, we're going and helping other communities. And when we need something, we know that they'll be the first to come. So really just kind of speaking to the tight-knit bonds of the law enforcement and first responder community, and how, and we see it when there are disasters elsewhere in the country, how you have all these agencies that will flock to that one spot because it's all about supporting each other. And he said that it just really made him proud to be not just a North Carolinian, to see all the North Carolinians banding together, but really an American. As he said, they were working alongside crews from other states. And it just really I guess, warmed his heart to see the community on display like that.